Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna stop.
Welcome back, all you citizens of the world. This is live from the Heartland for the week of January 17th. I'm Michael James. And my next interview is with my cousin, Adam James. Usually he comes on the show as Cousin Adam with the Sports Report. He did play football at Northwestern. He's a physical trainer. He's also an actor, a producer of a show called Doc Savage, Man of Copper. It's a streaming series. And I do a weekly call with family, and we talked a lot about the LA fires. Adam lives in LA, and instead of doing a sports report, we're going to talk fire. So good day to you, Adam. It's great to see you always. I know you were safe and sound the other day. I assume you still are today, but those fires continue to burn, and the issues, the ramifications from all that's going on with them are great. And how about giving us a little insight into where things are at from your viewpoint?
Yes, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's great to see you. It's always great to be on the Live from the Heartland show. Fortunately, I'm coming in to talk about this, very devastating topic. Myself personally, my family here, we were, given an evacuation warning the other day during these fires. We were very fortunate we were not evacuated. Our home was not damaged. And however, I personally know many people who not only were evacuated, but their homes were absolutely destroyed. And it's, of course, a devastating experience for those people. Our heart goes out to them. It's really impacted the greater Los Angeles area in so many different diverse industrial ways. One component of the business here in Southern California, of course, is the entertainment industry. And that is one area that's really, really been affected. Productions have shut down, and many people who work in various capacities, everything from, famous actors. People may have heard stories about some famous actors have had their homes lost, but also everybody down the line to people who are grips and electricians and sound people and all these various jobs that are part of the greater entertainment industry are deeply affected and impacted. So we as a community are pulling together, and we are very grateful to the rest of the United States, the people that are, opening up their hearts and their wallets, and they're doing everything they can to help out the Southern California communities.
Well, tell us what you've seen when you're driving around, because you didn't have to evacuate. You've been through these fire scares before.
Yes.
What are you seeing when you drive, and are you allowed to drive around?
Yes. Well, first of all, what I would emphasize to everybody, because there are a lot of people who are passionate about this. They want to know, they want to help, and they're also really angry and frustrated. And we should be angry about this situation. There are some people that are saying there was mismanagement and poor usage of the resources and such, and that certainly needs to be looked at, discussed, and analyzed. One of the things you want to be really careful of is in the middle of an emergency, spending too much time criticizing and complaining. My motto is heroes help, cowards complain. Let's get in there and make a difference. And yes, a lot of that is pausing and thinking and making the right choice. But sometimes when, the emergency is active, those pauses have to be short. The actions have to be great. So one of the things that people oftentimes are talking about is backburns and other usages of controlling the forest land. And there's certainly a lot of efforts that go on there. First of all, I want to emphasize the Los Angeles Fire Department, the Ventura County Fire Department, everybody I know who works in the greater first responders community are phenomenal professionals, fully qualified. They do a great job. They pause, they think, they take action that has been determined to be the best action across the board in the first responders industry. So the idea that they're mismanaged, that they're incompetent, that they're not actually doing their jobs, that's not true. And that's an unfair statement. I would also emphasize that there's this other component of the discussion. It has to do with climate change and global warming. And there's a lot of people who, of course, are denying that and don't want to bring that into the conversation. But it needs to be discussed because, again, I live here and I know what I've been experiencing over the last 10 years. It's an absolute fact that this last year was the hottest on record. The last 10 years have consistently gotten hotter. The conditions that we lived in 6 years ago when we experienced the Woolsey fire here where I am, have just gotten worse. It's hotter, drier, the vegetation that has grown on the hillsides throughout Southern California. It's a Mediterranean climate. There's small shrubs and grass that grow on the hillsides all over Southern California. And when you get seasonal rain and then seasonal summer, and occasional burns happen. But when you get limited rain, almost no winter rain, and extensive long periods of extreme heat, the hillsides are covered with brush that is dried out. This has been a major factor in this particular burn, the Palisades burn, the Eden as well. And that is extremely dry conditions, loaded with lots of vegetation that has been there for years. And, you can't just go in there and cut that back very easily. It takes a lot of money, a lot of expense. And the other condition that added to this extreme fire situation is the wind. Once the wind picks up at that level, a small spark, a mile away can cause a fire, a mile down the road. And that's basically what happened here. Multiple fires started breaking out. And again, the fire department has so many people, so many men and women that are working for them, so many fire trucks, so many fire hydrants. Can we add more? Of course. Is it understaffed? Yes. Is Los Angeles challenged with financial aspects? Yes. Every major city in our country is right now because of the pandemic. Cities were emptied. I personally work in a job where I'm working remotely now. We still haven't gone back to the office, the majority of our staff. So this is happening in major cities, and major cities have a lot of challenges. One is that there's old infrastructure. Old infrastructure needs to be maintained. That's expensive. Old infrastructure also needs to be replaced eventually, and that's a huge expense. And so those are the kind of things that cities have to make tough choices. And Los Angeles, of course, has another component. A lot of people across the country like to point the finger and complain, tell Los Angeles and the state of California, you need to do this, that, and the other thing to figure it out. And that's homelessness. No doubt about it. Homelessness is a major issue here, and more needs to be done. But there's some factors that contribute to California and Los Angeles being a haven for homelessness. One, of course, some people will point out the politics, very open to people who are struggling to come here, get help. Another is the weather, the climate. And it's easier to be homeless in Los Angeles than it is in Chicago because you don't have to deal with that Chicago winter. Mm-hmm.
Let me jump in here a little bit.
Sure.
One of the political criticisms that keeps coming up is around Karen Bass. Yes. Who we've always liked as when she was in Congress. And I think she's probably she seems to be, really clear when she talks in the news. She did promise not to leave the state, but she went to Ghana and had to come back. But I think she's done a pretty good job. And the other complaint we hear a lot that gets floated around is the water pressure question. Right. And I don't think that the water pressure is something we could have, been ready with given the scale of this fire. Your thoughts on both Karen Bass and on the water pressure?
Well, in the water pressure situation, I'm not an expert on that. And I've read same news stories that most of our listeners here today have. My understanding is that there was water. That, people have pointed out there was a water reservoir that was empty. That's true. But every fire first responder that I've heard who's spoken on this knowledgeably has said there was water. The problem was there were so many fires, so much demand. There was demand across the grid. There just couldn't possibly be enough water pressure because of those aspects. And then the other was the power shutoffs that were being done to prevent more fire. So yeah, that was obviously a tremendous disappointment and very concerning. God willing, that will improve with better systems analysis and adjustments as needed. With Karen Bass, I agree with what you were saying. I think that she has done a good job. I personally, I didn't vote for her, but I'm technically not in Los Angeles. That's another thing a lot of people don't understand about Los Angeles. Los Angeles is a city within a greater county. Most people think of the county of Los Angeles as LA, and the mayor of LA controls all of that. Well, she really doesn't. No. It's a city of multiple neighborhoods that all are part of the greater Los Angeles County. And then they all, work together on the city council. The city council has tremendous power in this city. And so Karen Bass is a leader in many ways. She has her hands tied, but, and she's also new to the position. She's just come in. So it is absolutely a failure in leadership perspective when you've made the promise not to be off duty, away from where the action is going to happen, and then have action happen. That looks bad.
Yeah.
And she had made that promise. So, that was a big mistake. But I feel that she's handled it well in regards to her response, getting back here as soon as possible, being in touch with everybody throughout that.
Adam, let's go into some more ramifications of this. Normally you come on and you talk sports in great detail. What about sports? We have games canceled.
Yes.
And we do have, I think I want to address the implication for the Olympics, which are scheduled for Los Angeles.
Great segue. Thank you so much. In the sporting world, obviously, many people will be aware that the Los Angeles Rams were scheduled to play a home game on Monday night. And that was moved to Arizona. And they played that in the Glendale, Phoenix area at the State Farm Stadium for the Arizona Cardinals. And it was necessary to do that. If you think about it from the standpoint of the first responders' resources, to have police and fire and EMTs all stationed at the stadium, because, it's a large gathering of people when there's fires raging, they needed to, prioritize all those resources. It was tough for the fans to not be in the stadium, being able to cheer on their team and experience that. Some fans, of course, went to Arizona to be there, but that is a disappointment for some of the fans. But gosh, you got to do what you got to do in an emergency like this. And so the Rams obviously went and played great. For those of you who are fans of the football, NFL, and are aware of that, the Rams played a great game, beat the Minnesota Vikings. They go on now to Philadelphia to play the Eagles, and the Los Angeles, community is definitely galvanized by their success. The Lakers and the Clippers both postponed games after the fires broke out, and then just recently played their first home game since the fires. Many of those people were deeply affected, and people have heard stories about them. The coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, his name is JJ Redick. His home was in Pacific Palisades. His home was completely destroyed, and he's talked openly about it since the fires and what that experience is like. And also, again, going back to the entertainment industry as a whole is going to be going through kind of similar things that the sports world is, and that is doing everything we can to support each other, support this greater community. Then the other thing you mentioned was the Olympics, and the Olympics tie into both the entertainment industry and to sports. And It's obviously a huge part of what's coming for Los Angeles. It's going to be a really great thing for LA and for our country. And this will be something that, coming off of these horrific wildfires, will hopefully help us build back better and stronger and faster because of the coming Olympics and the infrastructure investments that will happen there, as well as the people who come during Olympics who invigorate the city and participate in activities and go back to their home countries and home cities and tell everybody how wonderful LA is. And then people come. Hopefully that'll be their experience.
Well, why don't you talk a little bit about people's love of LA? It's always been, as a kid for me, into hot rod cars. Los Angeles was the home of the National Hot Rod Association. And, I haven't ever spent a lot of time in LA. I've been there a few times, but people love it, and it's like deep in our entertainment. It's deep in our kind of image of America.
Yes.
And the resiliency of people there. You've talked about what the implications are for sports, for the Olympics, for the film industry. And I know the film industry is already challenged with cities around the country offering better deals than LA or Chicago or that kind of thing. What about the spirit of the people?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that. No doubt about Los Angeles and California are one of the great things about America. And if you love America, then you love Los Angeles and you love California. You think about some of the great people that have come from Los Angeles. There's a lot of people right now who really love this conservative image. To them, that's America. Well, John Wayne is from Los Angeles. He's from Southern California. John Wayne is a Californian. Jackie Robinson is a Californian. Jackie Robinson grew up here, went to school here, and then he changed the world. So there's so many great people from Los Angeles who have had a huge impact on this world and our country. And so as LA is going through these challenges, this is the time where, first of all, we're strong. We're going to come back stronger than ever. Los Angeles will, California will, America will. It's also really important for us to stand together. Of course, again, there's a lot of criticism. And I said that to a friend the other day who posted something. Heroes help, cowards complain and criticize. United we stand. This is the time to come together and really help each other. So that's kind of my...
Are you seeing a lot of criticisms, a lot of kind of right-wing stuff around it?
Well, of course, yes. Now, I personally don't have a lot of friends who fall into that community. I do have some, but most of the people that I'm connected with, that I work with, they don't have that same mindset. But there are definitely people that do, and there are a lot of people who are caught up in some of the stories that are being promoted. And I had somebody the other day literally send me a nice letter, a really nice email, thinking of you, wishing you all the best. Gosh. And then they said, I saw the photo of the Hollywood sign burning. Oh my God. And I was like, they didn't burn. That's a false image. It's just an example of how in today's society, we're oftentimes moving so quickly with such a short attention span focus that we can literally have something put in front of us where we just accept it. We accept it as fact, we accept it as truth, we accept it as real. And we really need to live a life at a little bit slower pace of pausing and thinking. It's one of the things that I've shared with people about an emergency. I was actually taught a really great emergency strategy. No matter what is happening to you in your life, you experience an emergency, an earthquake, a fire, somebody having a seizure. Remember these 3 steps. Number 1, stay calm. Number 2, evaluate the situation or assess the situation. And number 3, take action. In the work that I've done as a manager for different teams, this is part of our safety training program. More important than anything else, I drill that into their head. I will say to them, number 1, what do you do in an emergency? And everybody's response is stay calm. And then evaluate the situation and then take action.
Well, let me talk a little bit more about the importance of friends, family, and neighbors, because you and I do get to see each other every week with a group of our family. And it's been a pretty wonderful experience. It started during COVID. But you were talking about the value of relationships. And can you expand upon that a little bit and talk about how that might apply to LA?
Yes. Okay. So wonderful. So first of all, just for those of you who are listening today, my family and I, what happened was when the pandemic hit, my father was living by himself at that time. My mother had passed away. And so we were very concerned about him. The pandemic was causing people to be, isolated. So he and I started Zooming together. And he said, well, we got to do this with others. And David James, my father, is a really sharp guy. So he quickly organized a Zoom session for family. Shortly after that, he was pulled into his alumni association and would put on an alumni association event with Zoom, kind of guy he is. But we started doing this every Sunday. And it's one of the good things that has come out of a horrible thing. For our little family, we've been doing this regular Zoom every Sunday, and it's really brought us much closer together. We're much more connected. We know what each other is doing, and that's a wonderful thing. So as we go through these emergencies, as people go through these disasters, it's so important to be connected, to reach out to family and friends, even just to say, hi, how are you doing? I want to see how check in on you. I also will emphasize that while Zoom is wonderful, and phone calls are great, and emails and texts can get a message across. There's nothing like talking directly to somebody. What we really need is to see open eyes and hear clearly with our ears and to speak directly to people. So it's one of the things that I really encourage people to do is get together, to gather, to seek out your friend. And if you're able to. Now, for a person in Chicago who loves Los Angeles, it's obviously don't fly here right now. Hotel rooms are booked. However, these kind of moments are brilliant. Zooming is great. It's almost like we're in the same room together. And then almost.
I'll reach out and touch you, buddy.
And then for those people that are here in California, if you can, spend a moment to volunteer, to go down to these areas that have been ravaged, to try to donate items, and even just to go in and volunteer for a few hours with the cleanup efforts. Also, be sure to, it's obviously smart, check with the local government agencies to see where your presence is most needed and where your presence is most not welcome at the moment. One of the things that's been emphasized to a lot of us here is there's a lot of looky-loos, a lot of people who want to go down and see where the fire burned. They want to see their favorite restaurant that's not there anymore. They want to go and do those kind of things. Well, those areas are under restricted access because emergency personnel are still in there working. Oftentimes there's still hot spots they have to control. And then, of course, the actual families who've lost things there, let them go in there. So that's why it's important for people to check and find out where's the best place to go.
I got some notes here talking about opportunity, the upside and downside. And we know that this disaster will affect residents in a lot of ways, their health, the industry, budgets, housing, construction issues, inflation, insurance. Those all sound like pretty negative. You've already kind of talked about the opportunity to come together around, through this crisis, but maybe a little bit on opportunities as well as the upside and the downside.
Yes. Some of the greater impacts of a disaster like this, going outside of, the obviously immediate needs, the long-term financial impacts, how it affects the insurance industry. The insurance industry right now is reeling. Everything that happened in Florida is another example. The hurricanes through Florida are kind of like the wildfires through California. They're unpredictable. You don't quite know where they're going to hit, but there's probably going to be another one. Chances are. So we have to be smart about it. We have to be aware that these disasters can occur, and these insurance companies obviously have to do their best to stay in business, to stay solvable. And it is going to be something that over the next 10 years, hopefully, these insurance companies and our greater government will figure out a way to both provide for our people and at the same time, keep these businesses open, because they're critical for the success and for the recoveries.
Do you see a lot of people moving from LA to other places?
Well, yes, and it actually had been going on quite a bit after the pandemic. There were a lot of people who were leaving for political reasons. They didn't agree with some of the decisions by the government here. There's also people who've been leaving because they see greater opportunities in some other states with different tax, systems. However, that being said, there's also a tremendous amount of people moving to California and to Los Angeles. In fact, it's a city that has been growing, tremendously over the last, 50 years, obviously. It's interesting because I've been very involved with the Chamber of Commerce in the community that I have business. And I actually was the president of the Chamber of Commerce for a period of time. And in my capacity, I got involved with some of the new development that was happening in our community. A building was going up. And one of the things that I had opportunity to discuss with some realtors is, going back to that homeless thing here in California, is the need for more housing. Part of what really affects California and Los Angeles and many of the cities throughout our country is a lack of housing. It creates, because of the supply and demand factor, a higher price than needed. There's a higher demand than there is a supply. So one of the big discussions was increased housing density, creating more housing within a smaller space, kind of like New York and Chicago, growing up as opposed to out. And right when, these kind of discussions are happening is when a wildfire breaks out. And it rips through a community, and people go, whoa, 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 we need to have greater space between homes, and we need to have less density. So this is part of the balance of building a great city in America, is where do you find that? And that's where we have to elect competent, government officials and have clear policy.
Adam, we're going to run out of time, and homelessness is something that we really want to address. There have been Supreme Court decisions that affect homelessness, and we see a kind of a crueler vibe around people who are in a rough spot these days. It might go with the new presidency, but how about at that time when the new guy coming in talks about imposing tariffs on our neighbors? How about a little bit of a shout out to the Canadian and Mexican fire departments who sent their people here to help out the people of LA in a country that used to belong to Mexico and we took?
Yes. I'm a big believer in capitalism. I really do love our country and our systems. I do feel, though, that two areas that we really have to think hard about is housing and healthcare. Housing and healthcare are two things that, because of the supply and demand, there will always be a massive demand. And can we supply enough? These are two areas that maybe we as a society have to step in to make sure that people are provided with homes and health.
Adam, it's great to see you. I'll probably try to convince you to become a socialist. I'll continue in my endeavor. And we'll look forward to seeing you again soon with another sports report and maybe an update on LA.